Welcome to the Create Your Happy podcast, where conscious female creators come together with a shared vision to inspire and empower women as they learn how to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and collaborate on how together we can change the world. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness coach and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. Kristen, so excited you're here today. We have today on the show Kristen MacDonald. She is a certified purpose and Clifton's Strengths coach, and she'll explain that shortly. She's on a mission to help people to know, love, and be themselves by finding and following their purpose beyond the titles of their career and jobs. She loves to give people the space to learn about themselves and empower them to show up strong in the world. So welcome to the show, Kristen. I'm so excited to have you here. Let's kick this off with you sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do and how you create your happy and what gets you so excited about sharing, inspiring, and empowering women as they find their passion and their purpose.
Sure. Thanks, Christy. I love being here. I love your energy for doing this. So thank you for letting me be here. So a little bit about me. I actually started coaching before I realized it was a coaching. What it was called. I had a couple of jobs right out of college that was coaching some high school students. And I didn't really understand, or it wasn't main part about my job, but I loved it. It took so much out of me, but it was so fulfilling at the same time. It was this really weird mix. Yeah. And so being able to pour into other people and watch the lights turn on for them and things make sense and fall into place and then find that energy to move forward. It's just amazing. That's what keeps me going, right? Love that. And at the same time, it's something that it can be draining for me because it's funny because I think of it as a coach, like I don't do a whole lot. I give the space to my clients to be who they are, to explore. I ask questions, but my care and concern and everything flows out. And so it can be draining and I have to find the times to recover, but it's such a good drain and it's so exciting to watch it happen.
Yes, I love that. And I can totally relate because, some of the favorite parts of the businesses and the work and jobs that I've done before becoming a coach, very much those parts of them were what got me excited about it. For example, I taught piano. That was my first business. And I love seeing the transformation, especially new students. And I still teach piano. I love seeing new students to grow and transform and go from knowing nothing to being able to play even a simple song. It's magical to me. And then in accounting, the same sort of thing. I loved mentoring. I loved training and doing that work where it was helping people to grow. And, I wouldn't have called it coaching at the time, but now I look back and, I was really passionate about mentoring and teaching and training and working with those. And I also taught accounting at post-secondary, educational level. And so all of those kind of things, I'm like, oh yeah, definitely leading me down this path to the coaching thing. So tell us a little bit more about the Clifton Strengths coaching and about being a purpose coach. Like, what does that look like? How do you use that to inspire and empower people?
Yeah. So it's so funny because so Clifton's Strengths is something that was created by Don Clifton back in the 40s, 50s time period. And he had this thought, especially in psychology at the time, everything was what's wrong with you? What are your disorders? And so he had this thought of what if we focused on what you do well instead of what you don't do well, right? Novel concept.
Yeah.
And so somewhere along the lines, Gallup got involved as a company. And so they have research and data and support for putting together this assessment that gives you 34 different themes of what your strengths could be and how they show up. And no theme is better than another. This is just who you are and what makes you unique. And then you take that to understand, how do I show up in the world? It's not what you can and cannot do. It's how you do everything. And so it's so funny listening to us talk about loving to pour into, build into other people. That's absolutely developer. And I have developer in my top 10. And it's what drives me through all of this is wanting to see people grow and develop. And it's that journey and that process that you go through. So anyway, it's fun to see that in other people. It is amazingly empowering when you stop focusing on expectations of the world or your weaknesses and say, hey, these are my strengths. This is what I do well. How does that impact everything I do? So, especially being a business owner, I don't have the traditional strengths that you would say, oh my gosh, they're a good entrepreneur. But that's okay. I just have to remember it's going to look very different when I do this because it's going to be coming from my strengths. Not that I have to pull down to my bottom, 5 and say, well, I need to find a way to do that because that's what makes a good entrepreneur. That's draining. That's difficult. Anybody who's been working in one of those areas knows that you're not going to get stuff done. You're unproductive. It's draining. So yeah, that's a big piece with what I love. And I love to take that then and help people figure out, okay, what's your purpose? And I believe very strongly that your purpose is not a destination. It is not a job. It is not a career. It is not a lifestyle. It is little ways that you can fulfill your purpose now and grow that in the future. And so it's all about identifying, okay, what do you value? What's meaningful to you? And how can you continue to cultivate that on a daily basis, beyond just your career or your job title or what you get paid the most money for and how you make your living. Just it touches every aspect of it. And so to be able to pull in strengths to that, I love seeing that.
Yeah. And I think that when we're able to reflect and look at those unique strengths that we have and to build our business and our life around those things, instead of trying to work with what we think we should be doing or looking at other people and comparing, instead, if we can look inside and recognize these are my magical superpowers or special strengths or unique gifts, and then build from that place. It's going to feel a lot easier. It's going to flow a lot easier. It's going to be more enjoyable. And it's going to give you just a little bit more pep, I think, because you're just going to be excited because it's coming from a place of doing things that light you up. And that is just so much more magnetic and more fun and is going to create more happy in your life. So I love that. So if someone out there is listening and they're wondering, well, I don't have a purpose. What the fuck is my purpose? How would you respond? How would you help them to start to discover maybe what their purpose is?
So I generally start by those moments where you just feel like everything's working right. And they can be very small moments. It could have been 5 minutes that everything just felt right. And then we'll dive into, okay, what were those pieces? What were those components that made that a beautiful moment for you, where you felt relaxed, where you felt joyful, where you felt energized, whatever it is that you just like, I loved that moment.
And then how can you create more of it, right?
And then how can you create more of it? But to pull back and to try and get, okay, so you've got the initial situation of, okay, here's the actual things that set that up. But then to zoom out a little bit, okay, what does that mean? What did that situation bring you? And like, I can think in my mind, the first time that I was doing the coaching, it was actually up at a camp up in Canada and on this lake, and I'm on this rock, and it's this moment of like, there was a bit of a drain and I knew I needed to get my energy back, but I had the time and the space and the support and I was pouring into people. And so I can picture that moment, but then to zoom back and go, okay, what created that moment? Because I'm not going back to that same camp in Canada and I have to be there to recreate this. So yeah, to take those features and to pull it into other areas of life and to work on that zooming out. It's a lot of work. I think a lot of times it's hard to peg those things that we really do enjoy.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Yeah. Either they're not happening or we don't recognize them as well.
We often minimize we can minimize those experiences, right? And be like, oh, it
Yep.
was just a little blip, or it was just a tiny thing and it's not that significant, but
Yeah.
it may actually be a tiny signpost to that thing that's really lighting your soul on fire. So we don't want to ignore those, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us a little bit more about Kristen. What do you like to do for fun? What lights your soul on fire in a fun, playful, create your happy sort of way?
So I'm married and we have 2 dogs, which you hopefully won't hear. But that's always
okay with it.
Right. That's always a possibility, So we've got 2 dogs. They're loads of fun. I love training and working with them. One of our dogs has some anxiety issues, and so we've been working on takes a lot longer and spending the training, but it's so much fun. Same kind of thing is that development and progress for him to get him more comfortable with things. Especially during the pandemic, my husband and I started playing board games.
Fun.
I think it started, I got Villainous. I don't know if you've heard of that game.
I haven't.
Okay. It's with Disney. I love Disney villains. If you can't tell, kind of behind me, I've got Maleficent's dragon right up there. And so it's an awesome game. You get to play as the villain, but it's a competitive game. So when it's just the 2 of us playing, it's the 2 of us against each other. And we realize, hey, this isn't good for our marriage. This is going to be bad. It may be a game, but it starts putting us at odds too much. So we found some fun cooperative games.
Nice.
And my husband played D&D growing up. Okay. And so we've found some more strategy, teamwork, fantasy type games that we get into. And so that's been a lot of fun. We do sporting events. Love going to that. My nephew, one of my mini nephews, plays soccer. And so we'll go, and he lives nearby. And so we'll go watch soccer games. We love to travel.
Right. I love traveling too.
Oh, so excited to get back out. We just went to Disney this year, just because of, time and everything with COVID. World.
I have never actually, I have been outside Disneyland, but haven't gone in, but I have been to Disney World quite a few times. I just happened to be in Anaheim for something kind of unrelated and very much in the area, but I couldn't convince anyone to go to Disneyland with me. And I don't want to stand in line for hours by myself. So
although I have heard solo trips can be fun. I've never done that. My husband really likes, and we were getting into Blizzard games, so World of Warcraft and such. This is before their whole fiasco of everything that's happened in the news, if you follow Blizzard. But they had their BlizzCon, their big conference at the Anaheim Convention Center right across from Disneyland. And so he wanted us to go. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'll go to BlizzCon with you, but you got to take me to Disneyland afterwards.
Like a little give and take, like any healthy relationship.
Exactly. And it worked. It was good
for me. Yeah, I love it.
So we're excited to get back bigger traveling, international traveling. Hopefully as things start to slowly open up from COVID.
Yeah. I'm curious. Tell me about maybe your most favorite traveling adventure.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. We've had some fun ones. We've gone, oh my gosh. I don't know that we've been international without family. That may be part of the problem. now that I think about it, we've actually always gone international with family, which is fine. It's great to go. But one of my favorite trips was my mother-in-law's college. There was a professor who did this program with the students to go on like a Holocaust tour, to go study, to go learn, to go see. And so she had like this whole curriculum that, when you go as an alumni or family, you don't read I'm like, I'm not in school anymore. I'm not reading all this stuff. But it was a very amazing, interesting experience, because there are so many museums in Berlin, that we got to go to, and to see the history and to get so much more in depth than you get in the textbooks in high school and everything. And then to actually go to some of the concentration camps. It was a moment to try and understand, like, what do we do with these places? Do we tear them down? Do we leave them as they are? Do we rebuild replicas? Do we memorialize? Like, what does it look like? And every place had a slight nuance to how they do it. And so it was interesting. My husband and I were talking like, what are you supposed to do with something like this? And I know us in the States, we're talking about slavery and it's been a big deal. And what do we do and how do we overcome it? And the fact that it's not just slavery, it's been for decades after, and all the voting rights and all the problems since. And I know Canada's had problems with their I guess they're Native Americans. What do you call them?
Indigenous.
I'm not Canadian. Indigenous. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, we have problems with that too, but not as big. We have not focused on it as much. But
it has definitely been a big concern here. I mean, basically the people that came here basically just took everything away from them, and we're like, oh, it's ours now, right? And there is definitely a lot of looking at how do we right this wrong at this point, because it's a long history of a lot of wrongs and a lot of wrongs that were built into the systems and the societal standards and all of these things, like across the world, really. I'm sure all of these systems almost need to be dismantled to rebuild it from the ground up in a way that isn't causing issues with one area or another, because there's just a lot of conflict. And I really think we all just need to come together and, find the way to overcome all of that. So
yeah, absolutely. But it was a really good trip, and that thought process, just to open your mind and go, hey, what do we do with this? How do I reconcile? How have they chosen to remember this, and what does that mean for me in my life? And again, bringing it home for the issues in my area. And it was just really impactful. So,
it sounds like a really rich,
intense,
right? Like to really not just go and relax, but really explore some deep topics.
There was a good blend. We were able to relax and did get to enjoy some things, exploring Berlin in general, going to a salt mine just outside Krakow. We tacked on a little bit in Paris afterwards. So there was a good blend. So there wasn't overwhelming. But it's that educational. I really liked that educational learning, the history, diving in, putting, actually being on the ground of places, getting to see the Berlin Wall, and, being on the ground in places that I've learned about and actually getting to see it. So it was really cool.
There's definitely something about experiencing something that's quite different from just learning about it, right? It's the same thing as learning versus teaching. That really just takes that depth to another level.
Yeah, sure.
So I'd like to just circle back to the purpose part, and the coaching business. And I'd love to ask you what the biggest challenge that you're facing in your business is, and if you'd like to share as well, how you're tackling that and how you're going about overcoming that challenge.
So I mentioned not having a lot of the strengths that are considered to be entrepreneurial. And so the biggest challenge for me has been to remain focused on who I am and what I do well, and not get pulled in the direction of, well, if I'm going to run a business, I should be doing X, Y, and Z.
The shoulds.
The shoulds. I should all over myself all the time.
We need to stop shoulding all over ourselves. Absolutely.
It's so difficult because that comparison game that you mentioned, it's so easy to compare, to look at others who are successful and go, well, maybe I need to do it that way. And especially I'm getting more and more, but for much of my life, not focusing as much on my strengths and following on those things that I want to say I'm good at, but I'm not enjoying, I can do them. But they're not fulfilling. They're not enjoyable. And so they end up being draining. And so getting away from that. And I think what's really helped is I know what I'm running to. I have those strengths, and I'm working to build those up with my coaches to say, okay, here's what this looks like in my business. And it's this constant pull, and it's crazy. It's tough.
Entrepreneurship, is that the word I want? Entrepreneurship, I guess, is an adventure, right? It's a constant exploration. And for the most part, if you are growing your business, you also need to be growing you, right? And part of that growth includes that energy management so that you are living mostly in that space of flow and things that are lighting you up and that you're passionate and you're feeling that fulfillment and that you're not wasting time on things that aren't right for you, things that are out of alignment, things that are draining you and not making you feel fulfilled or just sucking your energy, plain and simple.
But still having the balance, like, I still need to do the accounting piece of my business.
Yes.
Like,
yeah,
there is some things that you just have to do that are required.
yeah,
But knowing and trying to get that discernment of, okay, this is an essential piece that I
yes.
need to do as a business versus this
This
is
should.
not, and this is
Yeah,
not right. This is not me. Or how do I bring my own flavor to it
right.
in my own way so that I can get it done?
Yeah,
So that's been my greatest challenges, is not falling into those. I, I feel like a really bad bowler or something, and constantly falling into the gutters on the side, and like
yeah,
I just don't know how to bowl well enough, and I'm working on, okay, I can bowl and I can bowl straight and I can hit what I'm aiming for without going into these gutters of, oh, I should do this, and just
yeah.
slipping in. But it takes practice, it takes work, it takes wrecking, just that shift in mindset of this is not about working on the things that I'm not good at, on my weaknesses, on my opportunities. The fancy way to say weaknesses.
Yeah.
It's about working on what I'm good at and focusing on that. And then again, there may be a couple of times that I have to do something I don't like, being aware of that. But yeah.
Well, I think, growing up, we with the school system, the way it's designed to be, it's almost designed to make us all fit into a neat and tidy little box. And so we do seem to have this sort of back of mind need or compulsion to work on those weaknesses because we feel like we don't measure up and we feel like if we just could get a handle on that, maybe we could measure up. And it's honestly it's an impossible standard to attempt to reach, to measure up to perfection, basically, right? Or whatever idea of you that you have of, when I'm this, I'll be good enough, which is probably to say you're never going to get to that level of that
Right.
place in life, because we'll always be growing, we'll always be expanding. And I love that, leaning into the things that you are actually great at and expanding and growing those things is how you're going to be able to really shine and make a difference. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my next question is, what's a common myth? Can you think of a common myth in your industry or your field of expertise as a coach, as a Clifton's Strengths coach? What kind of myths are out there about fulfilling your purpose or finding your purpose?
Yeah. I think the biggest one is what coaching is versus what it isn't. And I think because there is no oversight into what is a coach. Anyone can call themselves a coach. And there's power in that, because then anybody can start from wherever you are with whatever experience. But it also means it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so for me, I tend to lean towards the ICF, International Coaching Federation's definition that I'm not giving advice, I'm not consulting, I'm not giving recommendations. I'm here to give you the space to work through whatever you need to work through. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to get empathy and listening from me and some insight and intuition. And you're going to come up with what you want to do. And you're going to get all the things unlocked and the lights going off, but it's all about you. And so it's interesting, like when you say, hey, I'm looking for a coach, there's so many different options, and you got to find the one that you need. Maybe you do need somebody that's more of a mentor consultant, that's going to actually give you that guidance, and that's great. Maybe you need somebody that's going to give you the space to discover it on your own, to put the pieces together on your own, and just give you the time and space and help you find all the pieces that fell on the floor before the dogs eat them or something, like to put it all together. So that's a big piece. And then the other one is just that idea that it gets confused with therapy, I think, in a lot of people's minds of, I don't want to go to somebody else for help.
Yeah. Well, we got this whole idea about being independent and not wanting to burden people, and also just thinking that we should, again, here's that should again, should be able to do it by ourselves.
Right. Yes. And so that can be a difficult thing to say, yeah, I'm going to go to a coach, and to remember, like I heard someone say, like, it's not therapy, it's personal development. And you do a lot of different things for personal development. This can just be one of them. I think it's scary as well, kind of like therapy. You are going to get a little deep.
Gotta get vulnerable.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, you do.
That good word, vulnerability. You're going to open up. Yes, I'm not going to let you stay surface, because nothing happens when you stay on the surface.
Yeah.
And so there is some of that fear and that scared. I think you set the right space, and I can set that space that you can come in and you can be whatever you are, whatever those fears and whatever's holding you back. That's okay. And there's no judgment, and there's no, all right, great, let's fix it. It's like, okay, let's go through this. What's your process to get through this? So yeah, those are a couple of the big ones that I think just plague all of the coaching community, because there's so much nuance, and there's so much of that fear, that insecurity, that uncertainty, that individual. Yeah, I want to do it on my own.
Yeah. And we don't want to burden people. I honestly, I really think that oftentimes our fear is actually just sort of excitement in disguise. I mean, there's two types, right? There's sort of this rational fear, like, if you encounter a bear,
sure,
okay, yes, you deserve to have an adrenal response and panic and whatever else you're encountering. But a lot of times it's because our brain is wired in a way to keep us safe. So when we perceive something as unsafe, and this may not actually be a legitimate threat, it may be a perceived threat. Oftentimes it is simply a perceived threat, the way that we are interpreting the circumstances, or an unmet need, or a deep insecurity surfacing as a fear, or I don't even know if it's necessarily a fear. Often it's just an uncomfortable feeling, which we label as fear. So often it's because we lack that connection with our emotions, and instead of allowing them the space and really processing what that might mean and how we might move forward, sometimes we just attach stories to it and say, nope, I'm scared, it's this, it's that. But really, oftentimes, I think that fear is actually a signpost to say, yes, this way, and to follow that slight discomfort so that we can move out of that certainty. Because listen, any sort of change is going to involve a certain level of vulnerability as you step out of your comfort zone. You can't grow and expand and experience change and transformation inside your comfortable box, right? So there's got to be this sort of propulsion forward if you want to continue to move forward. So I think lots of times that fear is actually excitement for moving towards that what is really lighting you up.
Yeah, I love it. And to your point of, people not wanting to burden others, to anybody out there who thinks that, rewind, listen to Christy and I get so excited about both of us have this desire and passion to help other people. If you don't come to people like us for help, not just us, but anybody who has this idea, like, you are literally depriving us. It is not a burden in the least that you are coming for help. Like, there are people in this world, and a lot of them are drawn to coaching for this reason, who want to help other people. It is part of their fulfillment. Yeah. And so don't ever think of that as a burden. And if you need to, think of it as helping the other person be fulfilled by you going and getting coaching. Like,
it's like a gift to us, honestly.
Exactly.
So my tagline is, you're not broken, you're human, stop apologizing. And honestly, this came out of an ongoing reminder to many clients, friends, etc., who apologize every time they get vulnerable. And it's good to be vulnerable. And so I'm just constantly like, stop apologizing. This is a gift. Your sensitivity, your passion, your love, your emotion is a gift to the world. And so, don't deprive the rest of the world by hiding that away and staying small, because the world needs your magic. And, those conversations, those deep, vulnerable conversations, where we're asking the questions that are maybe a little uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, very expansive. Maybe there's a lot of emotion, maybe there's tears. And I know that oftentimes clients be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for getting emotional. I'm like, this is huge for you. And I'm here to hold this space because I know how transformational, I don't know if that's the right word either, but how transformative, I don't know, either pick or choose, how big the expansion coming out of that is going to be. So I am completely happy to hold space, provide a shoulder, box of tissues, whatever it is. And honestly, as weird as that sounds, like that lights me up. Not that they're upset, obviously, but the expansion I know that comes out of it.
Absolutely. Yes. That's why you rock, Christy. This is awesome.
Yeah. So I would love for you to share, Kristen, what you are most passionately working on right now, maybe what offers you have, and then as well, how people can reach out and get in touch with you.
Yeah. The biggest thing I'm doing right now is with that strengths coaching. So I've put together a 4-session coaching to take the assessment, to understand what it all means about you. There may be some nuances that you're like, oh, hey, I didn't realize that, or I didn't see that as a strength, or, oh, that's what that means. And then what that means for your life and how to tackle, maybe you've got a specific problem going on, or just life in general. You want to take it to the next step, whatever it is, of how you can use your strengths in whatever's going on in your life. So I do have a 4-session package that I've got put together here. You can contact me. You said it'll be in the notes.
Yep. We'll put all the links in the notes.
Perfect. Email or LinkedIn. Let me know. And we can get you hooked up with that.
All right. Fantastic. And before we just wrap up, I have one final request.
Yeah.
Just wondering if you can share for the listeners, one idea that you might have as to how they can create more happiness in their life today.
Yeah. Big thing that's shifted for me, and I'm sure you've heard it multiple times, hopefully you've heard it multiple times because it's all around, is to make sure you have some kind of gratitude practice. So I do mine in the evenings before I go to bed, or even before I'm falling asleep. I think of the song from White Christmas. When you're tired and need to sleep, I count my blessings instead of sheep. And so that has truly helped me shift, because it is a great way for me to unwind and to recognize, okay, here are the good moments in my day. Here's where things were great. And to not, it's heading towards bed. You're not over analyzing. This is not the time to do the coaching of, okay, how do I maintain this?
Yeah.
It's just, okay, things are good. Here's the things that I appreciate. And that's been a great shift for me in my life.
Yeah. And that can really just help you to deepen those elevated emotions of gratitude and peace and happiness, right? And really just anchor them in, because the more you look to what you have, the more you are going to attract even more of all of that goodness into your life, starting with those moments of just feeling happy and grateful. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, super important practice.
It is always great to connect with other coaches that have that same passion, desire, value of helping the other person succeed from their perspective. And like you said, bringing all of that human-ness that comes with it.
All that messy, all those puzzle pieces that come together.
Because that's who you are. And we need to work with that and celebrate that and own that. And that's never, like you said, never something we should apologize for. So Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I love that so much. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. I trust you were inspired to take back your power and create your happy. If you enjoyed this episode,
please subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. If you'd like to connect with myself and or today's guest, you can find those details in the show notes. We would love to hear from you. If you've got an inspiring story to share, you can also apply to be a guest on the show at createyourhappy.ca. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.